And we are live. Welcome everyone to once again a new stream about free speech. Because personally I think it's a very important topic. And and Axel and myself once again a new stream about free speech.
Okay,
Because personally, there we go. Real Raven and I are working on a song on free speech. And I made the lyrics. And I'm so proud of making the lyrics that I want to share them with you. So that's today's stream is going to begin with you guys having to listen to me sing. I hope it's doable for you guys, and if not, well, I am curious. I am curious what you guys think of the lyrics though. So try to recognize it. If you can't, let me know because then I will post the lyrics. Where are you, song? Here.
Yeah, Modwain, how come you have to sing the one time I have no beer?
Hey, listen, I don't care. Does that make it clear?
Careful, you might offend me.
Modwain,
Yes.
what are you doing?
I'm going to make people listen to me singing.
Yeah, but you don't have the latest mix of that.
No, I know. That's the point, because then people can hear me sing, and then when the finished product is out, I will post it, and you will post it, and everyone in the world will share it, and then they can hear the difference between me singing and then you doing your magic on it.
Yeah, don't you want to hear my version, no?
No, I first want to hear. But you can play your version.
That's interesting because I thought you were completely out of time, so that must be way faster than what I have anyway.
That's possible. But let's start with my version, and then we can play your version. I don't mind.
So how did you? Okay, you'll tell me later how you recorded it, okay?
Yeah.
Because I thought you recorded the music and the singing separately.
Well, I only have the singing on this one.
Oh, it's a cappella. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, Father dear, and I often hear you speak of this free speech. They say a man could speak his mind till as far as his voice would reach. And words once shared drove our great land towards wealth away from hell. So why did they abandon it? Other reason to me tell. Oh, son, we did not realize how things like this would fall. We did not think it'll bring us here, where you can't say naught at all. At first it seemed all reasonable to refrain from words that hurt, but somehow words got added on, and it all became absurd. 'Tis well I do remember that journalists got banned. The month of March of that strange year truly started free speech end. They claimed she was a terrorist, whilst admitting this was a lie. And still the left demanded more. Free speech truly had to die. Comedians were scared away, their jokes were now a crime. If snowflakes could not stand a joke, the comedian would do time. And still we did not see back then the writing on the wall, that if we would let all this slide, free speech truly had to fall. Oh, you were only a wee lad, you still had to go to school. But teachers had corrupted kids, they became their favorite tool. The kids cried out against free speech, claimed it needed to be destroyed. And based on gossip from the crowd, the police then got deployed. Oh, Father dear, and the day will come when we know what we did wrong. That when we can't speak our minds, we'll just be forced along. And hopefully we need not fight, but be assured we can, to bring back what they took from us, free speech for every man.
Okay, first criticisms. Go on, people. You can do it.
Oh, this will sound awesome between the tenement halls of the gulags.
Oh no, I think you do a really good rendition of Danny Boy.
That's not Danny Boy, mate. That's Skibberee.
I know,
Oh, okay.
but your voice.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Not bad. It sounds even better a cappella.
Tullamore Drew.
You have a soothing, dark voice.
Do you want to hear what I made of it so far?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, listen,
Just
he
to
hasn't
start.
done much. He hasn't done much. And listen to how much of a work he already put in. I'm really... Go on. Same song. People, same song.
Okay, wait. Well, it's just with a bouzouki edit.
Oh, Father dear, and I often hear you speak of this free speech. They say a man could speak his mind till as far as his voice would reach. And words once shared drove our great land towards wealth away from hell. So why did they abandon it? Are the reason to me tell. Oh son, we did not realize how things like this would fall. We did not think it'll bring us here, where you can't say naught at all. At first it seemed all reasonable to refrain from words that hurt, but somehow words got added on, it all became absurd. 'Tis well I do remember the bleak November day,
Hey, that's not me.
when the pain of March of that came to drive us all away. They set their roof on fire with their cursed English spleen, and that's another reason I left old Skibberee.
I just put in a little bit of the original so you see where it's gonna go when it's finished, because obviously there'll be mandolin and flute and all that good stuff, you know. It's hard to match that, but I'm trying to match the rhythm of Modwain's voice with the original by... What's the singer is from the Dubliners, but what's his name?
Oh, I forgot his name.
Skibbereen is the track,
The song
anyway.
is Skibberee, yeah.
Skibbereen. But yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah.
It's
And-
just
and-
I had to do a lot of stretchy to stretch the words around and make them, because you were rushing it, mate. You were really rushing it.
I'm
You know
always
what?
messing it.
One thing there, Raven. I know it was just you pouring a drink at the beginning of the song,
Yeah.
but that timing was almost perfect to have the drink pouring sound.
I have to listen back to the stream and then I'll have to record it. I probably have to record it many times.
Well, you can have many drinks.
Exactly.
Practice pouring the drink.
Just, oh, that wasn't quite right. Let me do it again.
Well, I didn't drink anything when I sang that. I can't hear what you said there. Oh, there you were quiet, mate.
Oh no, it seems
No,
that
Dick
my
was,
lighter's
Oh, cool.
reproduced.
Ah. From orange to yellow. That's so cool.
Orange to orange.
That's like raven colors.
It's weird to see someone smoking in their house.
Well, you're not allowed to smoke outside anymore, it seems.
It's
Really?
not allowed. Is it not allowed in Utah? To smoke inside.
He's from Canada.
Well, I'll be honest. I'm not supposed to smoke inside.
He does it anyway. Rebel.
Yeah.
So good.
So no, anyway, I really wanted to share the text with you because I'm really somewhat
great.
chuffed about the song I made. I'm not sure if you guys actually picked up on the text, but these are all things that happened in the last few months. All of it, well, except for the last verse, obviously.
It sounds a little bit like Defeat.
No, it's not.
No,
It is.
but there's also some fighting spirit in it because
Yeah.
you can sing about it. So it's a
It's a
mixed.
ballad.
It's a mixed emotion. Yes, I can't place it really. I like it.
I really hope it'll be.
It'll be great.
Yeah. Well, you've already heard with as little as Axel as Real Raven has done already. With as little he has done already, it already sounds a lot fuller. And I know what he's planning to do, and he's better at this stuff than I am by far. So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
really
I
curious.
always need a good lyric to be inspired, or good like singing. Singing is really important. I'm doing a little bit of composing on the side. For film projects. My daughter studies animation, and I do it begrudgingly, but I really enjoy producing songs. Spend so much time on the vocals because I don't know, they give life to the music. The last track. Did you all see the thumbs up I released on my channel today?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it. It's really funny.
That
No.
really came to life as well.
Give me thumbs down.
Yeah, it's a Nickelback. Well, it's a Don Henley thing, but it really came to life with the guitar that Gary Awesome sent. It was great. Just electric guitar, that's just a real instrument. It's like more real than keyboards, It's got acoustic properties, and that really kind of pushed it for me. So I thought I have to make music that matches that is as good as this guitar that he sent. So I did. I think I'm quite happy with it.
Unfortunately, I simply am not good at playing any instrument.
Yeah, you only need to lend your voice. That's fine, and it's really important to write good lyrics. It's really important to write either funny lyrics or lyrics that say something.
But what did you guys think of these lyrics? Obviously, I think they're bloody brilliant and the bee's knees and whatnot. What did you guys think of it? Did it make sense? Do you have a feeling like, okay, there is something in there, or did you think, well, yeah, it's funny, but whatever?
It makes sense for the people who are in this YouTube. Yeah, yes, that's the right word, I guess. Yeah, community is such a broad word. So, but for the people who are into this, I think it makes absolutely sense. Not for the normies. It's culture war, all right.
Well, that's the point. I mean, you can't. I don't think you can do a PSA in a song anyway. You can't give information in that sense. You have to know it.
But Real Raven, you are showing your face again, mate. I'm not sure if you know.
I know. Okay. I'm not retard.
Hey, listen,
I just
that's your words, but usually you put your bird there. So
yeah, that's just for branding. You see, it's like I don't have a job that I can lose, so.
that's it.
And I'm just it's just my courtesy to Elicia and Futternutteh, who also show their faces. So
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna lose a job over this stream.
No, not over the stream, but I have put up some other stuff. And
wait till the super chats turn up.
Well, I'm not big enough for super chats. So listen, as soon as I can make my money with my online persona, etc., I don't care. They can take my job away from me. But at this point in time, my job pays the bills.
Who needs to pay bills?
Listen, if Tim Hunt, a Nobel Prize winner, can get fired because a journalist lies about a joke he is supposed to have made, then what chance do I have with the thing I said?
Well, everybody is always in danger at any time of losing their job for saying the wrong thing, whether it's online or whatnot. So you just kind of got to go with the flow.
Yeah, but considering my job, that's not that easy. I work in healthcare. Most of my colleagues are female. So yeah, and
I agree. I totally agree.
I think, but.
No, I totally agree.
Outside starts talking, and
Are you saying that you're just pimping there, Modwain?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I would totally lose my job by my videos that I make. Holy crap!
Yeah.
But actually, if I look at your videos, you make brilliant stuff. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. But then again, the social
It's
justice
just
warriors will
opinionated.
pretend to find something that is wrong with it.
It's
And
just like if you attack the main. I mean, I don't know. They would probably. You know, I think your stuff is so far out, Alicia, that a lot of people will just kind of they'll roll their eyes and say, "Oh, this is just some. It's on a different plane. I don't get it." You know. So it's on such a high level that you don't even. I don't know. People don't even feel attacked, even if they should, when they should feel attacked, because they don't get it. You know, they don't get that they're actually part of that machine. You know, it's crazy.
Oh, maybe I should be more direct. Maybe I'll get my channel bigger.
Yeah.
Well, did anybody actually
Rental
watch Dave Cullen's new video?
Who's Dave Collins? Is he the
Computing
redhead?
Computing Forever.
Yeah,
Oh.
the redhead.
I kind of stopped following him after the whole free speech thing that they were going to do, the debacle.
Yeah, that was a big mess.
You mean the
Kilroy.
event? Yeah.
I lost respect for him, so I couldn't watch him anymore.
Oh no, he backed out before it went right down the tubes.
That's why I lost respect for him. I thought the way that he was pushing it, I thought he needed to man the fuck up and do a good job with it.
Yeah.
I don't
he
think
he kind of did hang out Base Mama to do it all by herself. I agree with that.
I don't think that that's exactly what it is. I think it is more other people that were in charge had a little bit more skin in the game, so to speak, and Computing Forever was more figurehead with no real say, or very little real say.
A lot of people got used.
Yeah.
He was planning like, more like a. But I think that he retired because he didn't. He did have other stuff that was more important.
But
I'm still on Based Mama's Discord. It's quiet in there.
But if it comes,
I've been trying to reach Base Mama for the longest time because I wanted to come back on my stream. I mean, I've had a few times before this whole Kilroy debacle, and I do want to let her know that no matter what, I'm still in her corner. I understand what happened, and a lot of information has come out. Yeah, basically, she was left alone by Dave McCullen because he was the name that was pushing it, and she was helping out. Then he stepped back. She got help from other people, and those other people basically screwed her over.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot more to that story than we'll ever hear.
I don't think any of them were prepared for it. It's as if it was like they were, it was, and I'm not trying to be mean. But it was as if I was watching a bunch of 18-year-olds that just graduated high school deciding, hey, let's put on this great event. We can do it.
We can do it.
And,
no, we can't. But
yes.
and they hurt a lot of people. And I don't know. I expected more out of Dave, and that's why I haven't followed him. But please tell us what his video was on. We're all cock-blocking you.
Essentially, it was all about Independent Man retiring. Now, I'm not familiar with Independent Man. I didn't watch his content or anything. But if you watch Dave's video on it, he brought up a lot of things about being on YouTube or soaking as much of our lives into YouTube as some of us do. And the alienation that it provides. Like,
it's so strange because I missed his video. So Independent Man made one video walking away, and I thought it was just like temporary. So is he actually retiring from YouTube?
No, he's gone.
what
yeah.
he said is he's going to quit.
Oh shit!
I don't mind.
The guy actually used statistics and shit. He was pretty
he made
intimate.
great stuff.
Yes.
He made great stuff. There is no doubting that. He made great stuff.
Yeah, I never watched his content. I'll be honest, I didn't know who he was until the Dave Cullen video. I know I've heard of him, but
No, he made great stuff.
I followed him. Yeah, he's a business guy as well, so he's a good head, on him, and he always made very statistically well-founded stuff, not just opinion pieces, and obviously MRA stuff, which is something that interests me personally. So he's gone. So why did he say that he found it? You said alienating with the real world.
Well,
I agree.
enough.
It really
I
is.
agree.
Though.
If you think about it, how much research you have to put into each video if you're doing the right video. Because I know every video that I put out that's not on the fly, every occasion I have on the fly, the amount of research I have to do alone, and then the filming, and then trying to get it up. I would say that if you had a full-time, I don't know how, like I sit there and think, how the hell do some of these people do it? Like, it starts becoming obsessive.
I know that for myself, even and I don't do on the fly videos. Well, my rants on Facebook, I don't do a lot of rants. But if I look at the last video I made, that cost me about 5 hours to make. Now, maybe I'm crap. Maybe I'm really bad at this. But yeah, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Like every pedo video I make, I have it backed up with so much information. I know the ones that I was doing, the FBI statistics on child endangerment, did 3 videos on it. That took me a good week of just finding that stuff. And they were pretty short videos.
Yeah.
And then I try to collect all the information so I can see that. I see that we're going to be devolving as a YouTube group if we start. I don't know. It's sad. It's sad to see somebody like that go, because I just was scrolling through his stuff and I think I've watched some of his stuff. And so you're going to lose the intelligent people, and we're going to be condemned to just
blood sports.
Oh my god.
Sports are good. I like that, but
the thing with the blood sports is that that's really for people who don't have very much of a life. If you want to, like, the one thing with the YouTube, if you're also interested in the drama part of YouTube, you can spend basically all your free time by just trying to follow that. Well, it's really hard to, 11-hour streams. It's crazy. Who has that time?
And even among that, you go, like, for me, I'll be honest, I've been a shut-in for a long time now. And that was my own choice to do. But you go and try and make conversation with the average person, and they have no idea half the shit that we've talked about, looked at, or anything else over this time.
Of course.
Now, it'd be really nice to have a good, intelligent conversation, but half the time it's like, oh, that's like, they have no clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And what they're talking about is so mundane, and they're thinking that it's like this. Oh my god! I can't believe this
that's
happened.
the thing.
Like,
it's terrible because you're part of the subculture. You have certain information on stuff. I can't watch any like television, like normal daytime any television. I just can't watch it anymore. I can't watch the news anymore. I just feel like saying lies. It's just I only say half this. It's just so crazy. It's just
I'm lucky.
The war in Syria. Just one of the topics. And then you watch like 5 minutes of Sticks Hexenhammer, and you think, wow, there's so much information in there. It's just, and there's so much stuff to follow up on. And then when you see how they use that same kind of amount of time in the news coverage in mainstream media, it's so shallow. It's just oh.
I think you said it right there. The normal person, like, I can't say normal person, but yeah, normal person, easiest way to describe it. They do just get the fluff pieces. That's it.
Yeah. The Guardian's angle, the HuffPost.
Yeah.
The HuffPost analysis HuffPost.
It's like the Starbucks thing. The two black people. They're like, oh my god, that must be racist because Huffington Post told me to. And then you look at it, it's like, wait, well, no. The police and the store manager, yeah, they might have been asking them to leave. Like, the manager of that Starbucks might have been asking them to leave for the wrong reasons. But when it really comes down to it, they were still asked to leave. They weren't ordering anything.
Yeah.
The police were called. The police asked them to leave, and they wouldn't do it. It's like, what would you like? What I can't help but think
what
is
state?
It was in Philadelphia.
don't kind of shamed him. I mean, I don't know how full the cafe was at that point of time, you know, whether they had to turn other customers away because these guys were kind of loitering. But I probably, if it would have been half empty, as a manager of the Starbucks, I would have probably said, just to make you customers, so you have a right to stay here, I'm gonna buy you a free coffee now. I'm gonna make you free coffee here, so you don't have to feel so bad. You know, you little.
Like I said.
It's just
like I said, I'm not saying that the manager was right. I don't think the manager was
I'm not saying
right
he was
in kicking them
wrong.
out.
I'm not saying he was wrong.
Time,
it's just you know that he knows he should know that what kind of people go to Starbucks. You know, it's just all these activists. You know.
You know what I find really funny? Out of all of these people, I mean, there were two guys trespassing. Basically, they were trespassing.
Modwain, can you turn up your mic? You're very low.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So basically, these two guys were trespassing. They've been given a chance to buy something.
They said no.
They've been asked to leave. They didn't. They've been asked to leave again. They didn't. The police got involved. They didn't leave. The police asked them to leave. They still didn't. Eventually, the police arrested them. And the only person who actually lost something in this is the manager of Starbucks, because basically what he did is take care of his business. These guys could have done so many things to have this dealt with differently. And everyone is looking at the manager, and he lost his job. This, to me, is PC culture to the stupidest. I don't care.
He lost his job. I didn't know.
Yeah, he lost.
Terrible.
I don't care what skin colors they are. Had they been white, they would have probably done the same thing. That's not the point. The point is, you're in a shop. Buy something.
That's so crazy. I hope I don't know. I mean, that's really kind of changes my mind about Starbucks. I hope they really, if they fire the guy, you know, for doing his job right.
It was also a good example to see how stupid the MSM really is, because even here in the Netherlands we have the NOS, the one of the main news channels. They just copy and paste the story. They don't ask any critical question. They just make it about being these people are kicked out because they are black. Obviously that's not the case. So it's just
Yeah,
but it's blatant lie, you know. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, you're black, you have to leave. You know, that wasn't it.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Is the normies aren't going to ask any more questions. It's just, they're racist.
It's the narrative they are fed.
That's the narrative, and people still believe that narrative. It's kind of funny because yesterday, my colleague and I were in a conversation because I have problems finding a lot of political correct bullshit from the Netherlands, and I'm not going to pretend it's not happening, but I don't see it as often. One of the reasons why I don't see it as often is because I don't follow Dutch mainstream media, but I know it happens.
This video.
And a colleague of mine came with something where a woman was talking about how we can't, or how we shouldn't, or no, basically how we can't call people with a low education. Hi there, Steve. Welcome for joining us. I'm going to finish my talk, and then I'm going to give the floor to you because I invited you. But I'm going to finish this one. How we can't say people with low education have a low education because this is offensive to them. So instead of calling it low education, we should call it practice-based religion. Not religion, education. And I'm like, I mean, if you have a low education, this in itself isn't a measure of value. It's not that you're bad. It's not that you're wrong. You have a low education. If you have a higher education, you have a higher education. That doesn't make you smarter. It makes you higher educated. And somehow, this woman is talking about how we should not say, well, you're low educated.
What? Wait, what did I miss? I think I missed something on education.
Well, I'm probably going to make a response video on it. There was this woman in the Netherlands who's talking to a bunch of people. Steve, I'm going to put you on mute for a moment.
That's fine. That's fine. Sorry about that. I'm just giving.
No problem. No problem.
Is he the owner of YouTube?
No, he's not the owner of YouTube. No.
It's just a very mysterious Steve with an egg account kind of.
No, but he's using his phone. But I told you guys that I invited him to talk about Laura Sudden and why he disagreed with her. And I'm really curious to hear from him and to see where.
Oh, let's hear it.
But that'll be in a moment. First, I'm going to finish my story. Fuck that. No, this woman basically had a talk where she talked about how we should stop saying that if someone doesn't have a high education, has a low education, basic school education, we're not allowed to say that anymore. It's not fair. It's offensive. It's diminishing. And I'm like, what the fuck are you on about? No, we shouldn't call it lowly educated anymore or low educated. No, we should find another word to use for it. And I'm like, how stupid are you? Because if people call you low educated and do this as an insult, which to me doesn't make sense to begin with, but even if someone insults you, it's better for you to learn how to deal with being insulted than telling other people how they are not allowed to insult you with those words, because I'm going to give them a new word. And that new word, well, that's not insulting. And personally, I'm like, how long do you think it'll take before that new term will become an insult? Well, you're not allowed to call them lowly educated anymore. Now you have to say they are educated, task educated. That's a better translation. They're task educated. Now, how long do you think it'll be before people will say, well, yeah, but he's task educated?
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But it makes sense. Like homeschooling used to have a bad rap. Everybody thought only religious people did it, but now it's totally different. So I get it. It'll change. People will change. They're stupid to try to change words because a new one will pop up in their place.
Yeah. Learn people how to deal with insults.
And you can tell anyway. You don't even need to say someone's poorly educated because you can tell they're poorly educated.
Well, I don't know about that one.
No, I'm talking about I'm not talking about school education. I'm talking about overall how well read they are, how they speak, how they interact.
But this I'm sorry, this is also what I was talking about with my colleague. I mean, he has a son, I have a son. If his son comes home and talks about how he got insulted, I basically told him, so, okay, what are you going to do? Going to stop people from insulting your son? Or are you going to teach your son how to live with being insulted, how to not care, how to get over it, etc., etc., etc.? Well, obviously, I'm going to teach him how to get over it, move on. So if we're going to tell the people to change their words, are we then teaching people who are being oppressed? No, oppressed is the wrong word. People who are being insulted, are we teaching them how to deal with being insulted? No, we're teaching them that victim status has value.
I mean, it's interesting. I don't think you would teach your son to not be insulted. You would basically question why. Why are you insulted at this? Is there maybe a kernel of truth in the insult? Is there a weak point? Is there something that really hits you when this person says something about you? They say you are a Scrooge, you are a penny pincher, Maybe you are a little bit, So maybe that's a character flaw that was being pointed out to you. Or it was completely uncalled for. It was completely not, you felt mischaracterized, and then maybe you can say, okay, that's water off a duck's back. It was just a lie.
Tomato.
You need to learn how to deal with criticism. If you can't deal with criticism, you will fail. But they're going to make it sound like as if, but it's because they are lowly educated. Okay, well, I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to lie. But the average car mechanic is lowly educated. He's still a fucking car mechanic, and I still need him.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's lowly educated doesn't really mean a thing. But they're trying to make it sound like, yeah, but if you tell a 12-year-old kid that he's only low educated, well, basically you tell him he's low. No, you're trying to put in an emotional value into a factual one. Yeah, you have a low education. That doesn't mean that you as a person are low. That's just bullshit. But they're trying all sorts of things to make you force to think and talk in different ways. It's political correctness to the stupidity. And I didn't realize it was happening that much in this country. But apparently it is as well.
I think it's happening everywhere in the world.
And
that's unfortunate.
Well, maybe the social justice cult thing is not happening big time in the Netherlands because most people laugh at it. But if you look at policies and at the governmental level, it's there. Oh, it's there big time. I see it happening everywhere. Now we have this narrative that there's discrimination against pregnant women.
What?
Yes, there is the discrimination against pregnant women because nobody wants to hire pregnant women. No, that makes a bit of sense. So
I once heard that there's discrimination about dating pregnant women, but I always found it a plus. You can't get them pregnant twice.
most men don't date pregnant women. Why? Because they're already connected to someone else, let's say. So I don't think it's true. I mean, yeah, sure. If you like someone really much and she's pregnant, but you still like her, fair enough. I'm not going to tell you.
Well, if she's pregnant from you.
Yeah, especially if she's pregnant from you. But if she's pregnant from someone else, if a woman comes to me and she's pregnant from someone else, that will not increase her market value, so to speak. So why is it discrimination to be realistic?
You have to ignore reality. You still don't get it. Reality is a problem. It's problematic. It's toxic, and we need to point it all out.
Yeah, I'm not good at that.
You know,
reality is racist.
I
exactly
hate that fucking word.
Anyway, guys, I'm going to give the floor to Steve because Steve made a tweet. I think it was yesterday, and I really wanted to talk about it. I did tell you guys he was coming. I did tell you there was a chance he was coming. So I'm going to give the floor to Steve. Steve, give me a moment so that I can give you your mic back.
He has to unmute himself.
Oh, you have to unmute yourself, but he's on his phone. I'm not sure if you can do it on your phone.
Yeah, at the bottom of the screen, there'll be next to the end call button is the mute button.
Steve, do you know how it works? I hope so.
Well, it takes a while. Can I say one thing?
Yeah, sure.
No.
Okay. That's the. It's about Dave Cullen. Alicia was saying she was not listening to him anymore because of the whole Kilroy thing. And
we can hear you now, Steve. No, but
okay,
finish your thoughts.
Well, I would want to say I keep following Dave because if it comes to tech, he's on top of his game. He has made some predictions that has come true. So I advise to give him a listen once in a while.
Yeah, Dave Cullen is good.
He makes the videos I want to make.
Yeah. And he has the audience I want to have. Anyway, Steve, your tweet basically sparked my question if you wanted to elaborate and if we could talk about this.
Yeah, sure. My tweet was, let me see if I can remember it. My tweet was when Lauren Southern made her post about immigrants coming in and everything else. What bothers me is whenever you address an immigration issue and you kind of address it only to the immigrants coming in and not address the reason why they're coming in, you create I guess the word would be false, a false narrative that makes it nearly impossible for discussion to happen.
Okay.
So if you don't address the reason why people are desperately running towards your country, and you only try to address the fact that people are in your country, or running to your country, you create a larger. I think I'm repeating myself, but you create an issue to where there is really no need. There is no way to have a discussion.
Okay.
Then the first question would be, what is the reason why they are coming to, for example, Europe? Because she was mostly talking about Europe, but the same is true for America and Canada. But let's start with Europe. Why are the immigrants coming to Europe?
Well, in a general sense, because it depends country to country, in a general sense, most of these people are escaping from either a radical issue in their own country, something that's collapsing their nation, something that's preventing growth and progress. And in a lot of cases, especially when you get to a lot of issues in the Middle East and a lot of issues in, I'd say, Central and Southern Africa, you'd notice that a lot of these are connected to decisions that prevent those countries from growing.
So, like what?
Like, well, for example, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Many of the people that are running from the Democratic Republic of Congo are running from the violence coming from very, very radicalized tribal groups.
Yeah.
Those radicalized tribal groups were armed by someone. And the problem is until you address where these weapons are coming from, how these weapons are being distributed to only certain groups, and other groups are basically running for their lives from those certain groups because those groups do not have the same weapons and ammunition, there's no way to really have this there's no way to really have a conversation involving immigration unless you're basically saying there's destabilization in this nation created from basically actions that are not from maybe from the country, but actions that are happening inside of the country that they are running to.
Okay.
I would like to chime in on this one.
Yeah, sure.
Because I do understand what he's saying. Now, when you're talking about refugees, I'll be honest, that's one thing that I do agree on with Lauren Southern. I've been watching Lauren Southern since I essentially started a few years now. I've heard her talk about immigration and what have you. She isn't about immigration, or she isn't against immigration, but she is. I share the same thing as what she's said before, is it should be selective immigration. I do not believe in refugee statuses for long-term immigration, and there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is, cool, you're running from, I'm going to bring up Syria. You're running from Syria and the war in Syria because you don't want to die. That's great. I feel empathy towards you for that. But at the same time, what happens when we go to war? What happens when we need people to defend our borders? Guess what? All we're doing is we're populating ourselves for people that aren't going to stick around to defend ourselves, our values. They don't even want, like, on majority, and I do know some Syrian refugees that, you know what? I welcome them into our country full-heartedly, or fully welcome them in. But for the majority, I'd say, I don't want them. I think,
I'm
I think
I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to interrupt real fast. I do like this talk. I hope you guys can continue, but I need to go AFK for a moment. So continue, but know that I'm gone.
I thought you were announcing a super chat.
Can I intervene just for a second?
Sure.
Is that all right? Okay. Hi, Steve. Nice to meet you. Now, whenever I hear of people running from their problems, when I hear somebody say what you've just said, the first question I want to ask is, are you aware of the genocides that are happening worldwide, and that over 2 billion people right now are in active genocide? Then we have 2 more billion that are on the verge of another genocide. So basically, we've got 4 billion people that are in the midst of this massive conflict that, I'm sorry, the people in their country have created the situation that causes this genocide. And so when you have people running from the genocide without having the proper skills, they're going to bring that genocide to the other countries. And eventually, we're not going to have any true safe spaces for the young people to run to. Because right now, the people coming in, the majority of them are men. And I'm not male bashing, guys, not male bashing. But these men were part of the active genocide. And so you're basically inviting in the same mentality that causes that. And to me, when I think of some of these people coming in, it would be like inviting a bunch of Nazis from World War II. I have to use them because they're the only ones people seem to know about. You would be inviting in the Nazis, per se. And what do you think the Nazis are going to end up doing if they don't get that mental health?
Well, can I ask you a question before you continue? I just need to get a little bit of information. When you're saying these people are running from the countries that cause their own problems, which country are you listing in this?
Well, if you'd like, I can go ahead and pull up the active genocide math that I have.
I'm not asking which country's dealing with genocide. I'm asking which one is dealing with the genocide that was directly generated from themselves.
All of them.
Almost all of them.
Okay.
Almost all of them.
Every single
you do. Wait. Now we have a great history from like Zimbabwe, Zambia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and then if you go into the Middle East area, what you're talking about is that it was the communist regimes in the 1960s that started to plant the seed that would later lead to genocide. Now you can blame America and Europe for selling them guns, but you don't need guns to do the genocide.
I'm not blaming
Sargon's shitholes countries.
The reason why I'm asking which country, and you're listing if I'm right, you said Zimbabwe, and again the Democratic Republic of Congo,
Zambia as well. Zambia is having a lot of problems.
Well. If I can go back to the Democratic Republic of Congo,
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
If we could go back to the Democratic Republic of Congo, if we can look at the direct date of independence and the actions happening directly after, directly during that independence, it would be the equivalent of, I'm in the United States right now, it would be the equivalent of another country moving in to the United States and arming our Black Panthers, our KKK, our radical leftist Antifa, arming them with enough weaponry and technology to overthrow the United States government.
Well, you know as well as I do. You know as well as I do, Steve.
I'm going to interrupt the both of you. I'm going to interrupt the both of you because there is one thing that the both of you are not mentioning. And this is the most important part. And this is why there is no way to help refugees in any other country than the country they come from. It's the people in the country that build the country.
Yes.
If people flee from whatever violence created in that country, the violence is created by the people in the country itself. Now they might.
Wait, because you're misunderstanding my argument because I never had a chance to fully present it.
No, please continue, Steve.
No, hear me out. My argument is not for European countries to open their doors to refugees. My argument is actually to alleviate the intervention in other countries so they can heal, so you don't have to worry about a refugee problem.
I agree with you on that, Steve. I simply do. I really do. The worst thing that the West has done in the last, let's say, 50 years is things like feed the world and actions like that, because that has caused more starvation than anything else in the world.
Now, a question, why is that? Why would you say that?
Because they get dependent on handouts rather than taking a hand up.
That's
No.
And see that is a very, very horrible misconception. The problem is a lot of the feed the world, hear me out. A lot of the feed the world programs never actually fed the people that needed to be fed. What they would do,
they spend more than
exactly
millions of dollars on those countries.
They would drop millions of dollars worth of food into these countries and leave. Now, you understand that these people that they're trying to feed are the ones that are unarmed, that don't have the ability to defend themselves. So as soon as they leave, the radical groups that have already been armed by people who want the country destabilized for their own profit move in and take whatever came in to help that country grow and progress.
And here I'm going to prove you wrong. Remember Nigeria, I think 1970, 1960?
Mm-hmm.
Biafra. If I say Biafra, most people remember the Biafra incidents. Yeah. If they don't, basically Biafra was like a civil war. Boils down to that. People were starving because of that. And the rest of the world thought it was a big, big problem. So they wanted to help. People started bringing in food. People started taking out people, children, etc., taken out of Nigeria to give them a better life. None of these people were helped. Not the ones that were taken to safe countries, not the ones that were handed food. Because that's not how you create safety.
I agree.
You create safety by saying, okay, in this country there's a problem. We're going to police them. And it's not nice and it's not be helpful, but we're going to police them. And once there is safety, we're going to move away. And why doesn't that help? Why doesn't that work? Because there's only one civilization in the world that is willing to do it. And funny enough, the whole non-Western world blames the Western world for it. America has the nickname of being the police of the world. Before America, the UK had the nickname of being the police of the world. Before the UK, the Netherlands had the nickname of being the police of the world. But funny enough, in every country where they did try to bring stability, they actually did, except for America, because during the time of America, we saw the rise of socialism and political correctness. And now, America is to blame for policing the world. So they stop policing the world. But then we see it going wrong. We see it getting worse. And in all fairness, if we look at, what's his face, the Bush II, when he started attacking Iran and Afghanistan, yeah, I'm sorry, he did it for the wrong reasons, and therefore it didn't work. He pulled out when he shouldn't have pulled out, which, well, actually Obama pulled out, but fair enough, that was also because of Bush, which is why Iraq completely collapsed, which is directly...
Wait, let me just cut you off right there. Who put in the dictator that led to the issues in Iraq in the first place?
America. Why was there a position for another country to put in the dictator?
Exactly. Iraq itself was a bastion of stability before they decided to put somebody in there.
No, it wasn't.
Hold on.
Yes, it was. It was far more stable than it ever has been before Saddam Hussein gained power.
If you would say Iran was far more stable, then I'm completely with you. If you're going to say Iraq was far more stable, no, you're wrong. It really wasn't.
So you mean to tell me Iraq before Saddam Hussein is more stable than Iraq today, or is less stable than Iraq today?
Iraq before Saddam Hussein was as stable as it was under Saddam Hussein as after Saddam Hussein. Now it's a fucking mess because no one is in power there anymore. But
exactly, because you placed in somebody that all of a sudden, because he didn't play ball, it was time to get rid of him.
No, what you're doing is you're blaming outside forces for inside forces making a mess. Currently, if we look...
That would be like blaming Russia for Trump winning.
Well, actually,
no, not exactly. No, because I'm not blaming America. I'm blaming actually the entirety of the Cold War for a lot of the issues we're dealing with right now. So it's not just America that's the issue. It is America and the USSR making decisions in other countries doing proxy wars, creating the issues that we see today. So it's both sides, not just one.
Why did Japan do just fine? Why did Japan do just fine?
Elicia, please, let me respond to this, because we are constantly going around the main point of it. We're assigning blame without looking what really happens. Steve, do you have a driver's license?
Yes.
Okay. When you drive to work and you are in an accident, are you to blame?
I mean, if I'm the cause of the accident, yes.
And if you're not the cause of the accident,
no.
Then you're not to blame, or are you still partly to blame?
If I'm not the person that caused the accident, no, I'm not to blame.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you. You're still partly to blame because you might have done something to have prevented it. Might not be easy, but there is a chance you could have. Can we agree with that? If a car hits you from the... No.
That's highly circumstantial.
You know what? I got actually a better analogy than that.
Futternutteh, please, let me finish, please. Yes, it is a very assuming analogy. I agree with you on that, but there's a reason for this. Are you 100% sure that you have absolutely nothing you can do to prevent an accident?
I mean, again, that depends on the situation.
On average.
I would say this, if someone's driving the opposite way on the road and you don't see them, then there is really no way for you to avoid somebody that is already on your side of the road.
So how can you not see them?
Fog. I mean, there's a lot of variables that we could put in. You can be absolutely blindsided by somebody not driving. Like I can, again, you're asking me to think of a way that it cannot be my problem or my fault. And to be honest, it's kind of easy to do. I'm just kind of.
No. I'm not saying it's not easy to do. You are assuming my position, fair enough, but you're not completely right. But there is something you can do. There might not be lots what you can do, but there might be something you can do. You might not be able to prevent it altogether, but you may make the actual crash be less intense. So you can't prevent it altogether, but there might be something you could have done to make it less bad.
Okay.
Yeah, can we agree on that?
Again, depends on case, but I'll just say yes so we can.
It depends on the case. Fair enough. Yeah. It depends on the case. Now, if we look at you, and there was a chance for you to have no, let me rephrase that. There's a chance that you will be in an accident. Will you try to do everything you can to prevent that accident from happening?
Sure. I mean, that's the rule of driving. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but I'm trying to create the mindset here. If you can prevent it, will you try to prevent it?
Yes.
Okay. This means that you are a responsible human being. Shit can still happen to you because you're responsible, but you're not magic. On this we agree, right?
Yes.
Okay. How come we do not see the same thing happening with societies? How come we have societies in the world where we basically say, yeah, but they can't do anything about it?
Well, which is like, again, that it all depends on which society we're talking about. Because if we are speaking about the Democratic Republic of Congo, they really can't do anything about it because they do not have the weaponry to battle back against these people. Like, and this is a 3-state decision. This was the Dutch, this was the United States, and the USSR. All three of them armed the most radical groups possible in that country, and then stood back and watched what happened. So again, it's kind of like asking a baby with a spoon to fight off a 400-pound man with an AK-47. That's just not going to happen.
I'm not going to blame the people of Congo. I understand your point. I'm not going to blame the people of Congo. What I am going to say, though, is even if America gave them arms, even if the USSR gave them arms, even if the Dutch, I think the Belgians, because Congo was Belgium, not Dutch, but okay, these gave them arms.
Yeah, you're right.
It would have Belgium. The people in the country themselves, even if they were given the arms, are responsible for the actions they take. You can no longer say, yeah, but it's because of America. No, America shouldn't have given them these arms. I agree with you on that. Maybe America should not have given them arms. But the fact that America gave them arms doesn't really mean anything. It's how these people used the arms that is the problem. If we look, for example, at this point in time in Zimbabwe, when it was Rhodesia, they were one of the biggest food producers in Africa. When it was Zimbabwe at the start, it was one of the bigger food producers in Africa. Then the government turned against its farmers. And now they have starvations. Is the Western world obligated to help them?
No. And this again, that's my point. Even in Zimbabwe, if you look at Zimbabwe and you figure out how Robert Mugabe, right? Mugabe?
Yes.
If you look at how he got into power, again, it claims to be democratically elected, but he was elected by force.
Yeah.
And he was elected by force by outside actors that did arm his I can't remember what his political group was called, but it was to the point where basically they came to each person's house and said, "You're going to vote this way or we will be back."
Yeah.
And when you create an issue like that, and then it becomes, because I'm not arguing for socialism. What I'm saying is,
socialism caused it.
Yeah, when you give one side arms or you give one side power, and that side is already shown to be absolutely insane, it's going to destroy your country. That's why I gave the analogy of somebody arming the radical groups in the United States with enough weaponry to overthrow their own government. The United States would not be the same stable country that it is today if you armed every radical with more than enough weaponry to take down their government.
Well, in all fairness, if we look at America, I'm not so fearful that will happen because of the high amount of weaponry already in the country.
Exactly. But the United States is already armed, and they can control what comes in and out of their own country. They have their own sovereignty. These countries don't. And because these countries don't have their own sovereignty.
This is not true. These countries did. Because if we look, and Congo is a bit of a difficult example because it used to be a Belgian colony. And basically, because of the way it got its freedom, there was a lot of infighting. So that's why I went over to Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe is a clearer example. Zimbabwe was Rhodesia. No, it was. It was Rhodesia. It was attacked by insurgents and became Zimbabwe once again. So what happened in Congo is bad, but it's small scale compared to what happened in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe.
Well, they are all under the same, like that's why I keep having to go. I keep having to go to the United States, because this makes this actually argues my point. If you look at the United States between 1776 and 1865, they had incredibly horrible issues trying to even get together and figure out what their next step is going to be. It took a civil war that nearly destroyed the entire country to finally get on track to self-identification. Most of these countries had their liberation between, I would say, 1950, and that's being very, very generous, and 1992, which means these countries have had a very short amount of time to try to establish something, and to try to establish it with both the removal of the power that used to control them and the influx of multiple groups that rely on the destabilization for their own access to many of these countries' resources. It's not just the United States; it's almost every major country has done this.
What I fear you are missing, or where I feel that I have a disagreement with you, on a lot of points I agree, but where I feel I disagree with you is here. You are basically placing responsibility outside.
Not as much responsibility as I am giving you the basic roadmap of any country's destabilization.
No, I really feel you are placing responsibility outside of their own sphere of influence. It's difficult to create your own stable society. I totally agree with that. But if we look at, for example, Congo, if we look at Nigeria, if we look at Zimbabwe, if we look at South Africa at this very point in time, if we look at Liberia, if we look at Libya, if we look at Syria, all these countries had outside influences, but most of the fighting is not being done by outside influences.
It doesn't have to be.
But therein lies the problem.
Well, yeah, it does, because again, it doesn't have to be. If you look at almost any nation, the what destabilizes a nation isn't at most times an outside group just coming in, destroying them and saying, hey, we're here, we want you to be destabilized. No. Like I said, it always happens in the sense of you arm the criminals, you arm the most radical, you arm the most insane, and then you sit back and you watch the radicals, the insane, destabilize the country, and then you come in, put in a despot, make an agreement with that despot, and then have the access to whatever resource you need to have access to.
It's not even a resource thing, because if we look at, again, coming back to Zimbabwe has its own resources. There are not a lot of outside influences in Zimbabwe at this point in time, but it's still starving because its government is failing its people.
Well, at this point, no, but like I said,
failing its people? Because the government doesn't care about its people, because it's not a government of the people.
Of course, but again, you can't have one without the other. You can't look up and go, oh man, this country has a government that is controlling its people, without also adding in why this government controls its people. Like, okay. you have to factor in both.
So why is Zimbabwe controlling its people? Mugabe is already gone because the people stood up against Mugabe. So now, I forgot his name, they put someone else in, which was basically a compatriot of Mugabe. So nothing much has changed.
Yeah, because they didn't put him in. Like again, these quote unquote democratic elections are not democratic elections at all. Okay. The people in power make sure to stay in power.
If we look at America during this Civil War era, now America has been named by you during the Civil War era. How many Americans sought refuge outside of their country?
Not many.
Indeed, not many. Why do you think that is?
Because there wasn't an outside influence enough to show someone another place to run to.
No, that's so not really true, because both England and France were quite big during the Civil War. The Dutch as well.
But they didn't stay. Okay, let me see if I can answer this in a perfect way, or in the best way. Mm-hmm. If you look at how the English and the Dutch and the French traded during the Civil War, they restricted their trade, especially after the Battle of Antietam, from the South, because they decided, you know what, we're going to stay out of it. We're gonna still trade because obviously we need money, but we're not going to intervene in the Civil War enough to tip the scales one way or another.
But that happened in Zimbabwe too.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, and
Robert Mugabe was actually armed with more than enough weaponry to be able to take over that country if he wanted to.
For the longest time he tried, but the Rhodesian army basically destroyed them time and time again. The only
until they left.
The British Empire actually half funded the U.S. Civil War on the North.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're saying. Where do you think the North got their weapons?
Yes, but again, there is a big difference between giving the weapons to a actually democratically elected leader, giving it to somebody that the people voted for, somebody that the people put in place, and giving it to.
That's what made a civil war, is because half the people.
Why are we spending so much time on who's to blame for the destabilization and not talking about the solutions at hand right now? Who cares at this point who's to blame? But arguing over that
I'm not arguing who to blame. I'm literally saying the way to fix these problems is to remove the factors that led to them in the first place.
So we should take every white person and every American and every European out of the African continent, and that would solve the problem?
Is that what you believe is stabilization, to remove every white person?
No, I'm asking
that's a
because it
weird
sounds
question.
like that's what it sounds like you're saying is that America and Europe are to blame. So if you have to, if we're removing who's to blame, that would mean to remove the cancer, right? Which would be
I
the
didn't say remove.
Americans.
I didn't say remove who's to blame. I'm saying remove what's to blame. As in, wait. As in to actually keep track of the weapons that are developed in their home country and not have a way or a system to be able to move weapons in and out of your country without being able to track them.
Okay, I'm going to move to a different country once again.
So
because
gun control.
No, I'm not even going to go to
gun control
yet.
outside of your country, not in your country. It's
Gun
fine in your
control is no issue. Gun control is no issue because look at London. London has gun control. Now people need knife control because of the violence.
That's why I said I'm not arguing gun control in your country.
So
I'm saying stop weapons trade. Stop. Focus more on stopping illegal weapons trade, and you stop the problems that are in these countries.
Don't stop the problem. Do you remember what happened in Ghana about 20 years ago? The Hutus and the Tutsis.
That's not Ghana. That was Rwanda.
You were right. That was Rwanda.
Well, and yes, I do remember what happened between the Hutus and the Tutsis.
How many guns were used?
Do you mean the genocide or the war that happened after?
The genocide. How many guns were used?
During the genocide, not many guns. So but again, wait. But that was a numbers issue, not as much a guns issue. That's why I said right after the genocide, it was a guns issue. Because when the Hutu army was armed after the Tutsis did their genocide, if it was not for the fact that the people stepped in, it would have been a reverse genocide just with guns. So there was an issue that was already implemented in Rwanda. There was an issue that was already implemented with Rwanda, and then that issue was removed. And when that issue was removed without some sort of stabilizing factor intact, it led to such great violence between the two of them that it was already a numbers issue. So it was still a power issue. It was just a numbers issue, where in other cases, it's a small group of armed people.
It's society. It's not guns. So the problem is not the guns. The problem is the society, the culture.
No, the problem is who's armed. Not the gun itself. It's who's armed.
The problem is not who's armed. The problem is what culture is armed. Because if we look at, for example, Nigeria has fighting factions, poor Christians and poor Muslims, or lowly educated, or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are basically saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But the difference is, where lies the blame? And basically what I'm saying is the blame lies squarely in the country at the people's feet.
And the blame lies squarely at the culture that the people inhabit.
Let me offer you a way to try to best say what I'm saying.
Okay.
Let's say each one of your home countries had every one of your prisons opened and those people armed enough to overthrow your country. Would your country still be stable?
No, it wouldn't.
I'm not saying whether it would happen or wouldn't happen. I'm asking, would your country still be stable?
I'm telling you, America would be stable, yes.
And it would also be stable. There would be a short term of instability.
Short-term of instability.
Yeah, a very short term, but it is not an instability on the level that you're trying to portray it as. It would essentially be like a week of rioting and then a bunch of dead bodies on the ground because the military would deal with it.
Wait. I specifically said enough weaponry to overthrow your military.
Okay, so are you going to give them all rocket?
That's the purpose of the Second Amendment, actually.
I was just going to say that it's not going to happen in America because there's too many people that are armed to the teeth.
You're not going to have that scenario play out under any circumstance in this country and have it be in your favor at all.
It's not whether it. I'm not asking whether it will happen. I'm saying
it's not going to happen in Germany.
I'm not saying again. You're arguing. You're arguing a moot point. I'm not arguing.
I get what he's saying.
Whether it would happen, I said if it would happen, how stable would your nations be?
Steve, let me rephrase my answer. If in any of the European countries this would happen, and we assume that none of the armed criminals will start infighting, so we will assume that they will form one block, then I still am 100% sure that it will cause a civil war, perhaps. Yes, I'm not going to lie about that, but it will not destabilize the country.
Absolutely not.
Because even criminals in this country, on average, know that they are criminals, but they still have ties to the society.
Not only that, but take America, for example. We have prison gangs that fight each other, all right? There is no way you are going to get every prisoner on some type of one-track mindset to throw over the government. That's just not going to happen.
You're arguing the logistics. Again, take the logistics of my argument and toss it out the window. Yeah, I'm not arguing whether or not it would happen. My argument is literally, and again, I think you have a lot more faith in, especially the United States. I'm completely baffled by this one. You have a lot more faith in the actions of criminals than you really should. Like if criminals had the power to overthrow the government, they already show that they have a complete selfish intention.
If criminals have the power to overthrow the government, they would overthrow the government. Okay, I will give you this. They overthrow the government, then what? They start fighting each other.
Yes, they start fighting each other, and they start finding ways to hold and centralize power.
Okay,
that's what they're going to do.
I'm going to go to the side chat here. Ludicrous Leprechaun said, it did happen in Northern Ireland. I asked, did it destabilize your country? He replied, we came close to civil war, but in the end, population stood up.
Again, so it wasn't overthrown. It has to be overthrown in order for my argument to.
No, stop. Because now you're making a stupid mistake. I'm sorry, Steve, but what you're saying is now really stupid. You are saying we're going to let out all the prisoners. We're giving them enough weapons to be able to overthrow the government.
No, you didn't say to be able to actually overthrow the government.
No. You said be able, because there is no.
I'm sorry. Then let me rephrase the question. If I made that mistake, let me rephrase. I'm saying to actually overthrow the government, not just to be able to.
That will never happen, and there's a reason why that never will happen. Because even criminals are tied to the society. So overthrowing government is not going to be a workable model for anyone.
They have no.
I understand what you're trying to say, but that will not happen, or at least not at the current society in the Western world. And there's a reason, and that's culture.
Criminals.
Sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to mute you, but I wanted to hear Modwain, and I couldn't hear you, or I couldn't hear him over your constant talking. So I apologize.
But criminals have
yourself, Steve.
Criminals have no interest in destabilizing their own markets, so that would not make any sense.
That too, but even if they would, it would not be that much of a problem, because the populace itself will rise up, and people. Hell, if we look at the Second World War, the Soviet army, people charged the Germans with nothing but sticks. Now you could say, yeah, but there was a machine gun behind them, so if they wouldn't, they would be killed, and you would be correct. But the fact that it happens shows you that people are willing to do this. Steve, you are muted, mate. Please unmute yourself, because I can't unmute you.
And I could not hear anyone.
Can I make a little
addition?
I apologize,
Steve. That is, I do apologize, but I couldn't hear Modwain, and I wanted to hear him.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Can I add something? Because this whole conversation goes from top to bottom, but it is culture. Because if you look at the Netherlands, we've imported all these Turks and Kurds. This is a different fight. But we have healthcare for them. They have got the wealth. They got education. They've got everything from our government they need, and still we got street brawls, and they still put their mosques on fire. So there's still this tribal mindset. It is, I suppose, it's more culture than really it's from the top.
Yeah, it is culture.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, you're
because you take these people from these countries, and it's not only Turks and Kurds. There are more ethnicities in our countries who are fighting against each other here, while they have everything they need to prosper.
And still they will find ways to attack each other They don't
Yeah.
attack the Dutch; they attack each other.
But while they're attacking, are they allowed to like say what they want without prosecution?
Yes.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Yeah,
I
they
said
have
while
free-
they're infighting, are they allowed to like trash talk each other without prosecution?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, they are. No, they actually are. It's even so stupid that in certain European countries, pointing out the crime committed by immigrants is a higher offense than the actual crime being committed by the immigrants. There are people jailed in England, in Germany, in France that pointed out crime, and they are prisoned longer than the actual crime they were talking about and the criminals that committed it.
That's disgusting.
In the Western world, we're completely fucked up because we are so politically correct at the moment. It's stupid. But this is not a black and white thing. This is a culture thing. So if Steve, when you talk about how certain cultures are being destabilized because of outside influences, I understand what you say. But before these outside influences can destabilize them, they already have been destabilized. Otherwise, those outside influences can't get enough momentum. And that's the one thing we never want to talk about. We never want to see. But if we look at Congo, if we look at Zimbabwe, if we look at Nigeria, and Nigeria is doing everything it can to be a stable country. But the populace already is unstable. It takes a long time for them to become stable. And the outside influences might not make it easier, but they are not the cause of the instability.
Nations only can be destroyed from the inside. It's if we talk about refugees, when the Dutch and the Belgians fled in the Second World War to Britain, they came back. They came back with guns and airplanes. That they didn't stay in the UK, and that's a very different mindset.
Look at how Poland looked after the Second World War, and how fast they rebuilt it. They did everything they could to return to their country. Now look at some of the refugees we are having in Europe. We are actually having people from Morocco being refugeed into Germany. Morocco is a stable country. There are no civil wars there. There is a democratically chosen government. Okay, they have a king. That one isn't democratically chosen. And still there are Moroccan refugees.
They have a king and a prime minister, just like Britain.
Yeah. So there is a double standard when it comes to the Western culture and non-Western cultures. And somehow the Western culture is basically being told to carry everyone who's non-Western when they have a problem. But somehow the non-Western countries are not asked to carry their own weight.
Because they can't.
No, that's not true. I think they can. I think the biggest problem that these non-Western countries are having is the fact that people basically assume that they can't. And I think that's unfair. And Nigeria is actually doing everything it can to prove them wrong. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of Nigerian refugees in Europe as well.
Well, these are also people who clearly don't want to be in their own country.
And that's the thing. They don't want to be in their own country. They don't want to build their own country. They want to go somewhere else where they can have an easier time. Look at the Syrian refugees. Syrian refugees are en masse going to Europe. Afghani refugees en masse going to Europe.
You know, look at the concept of the American dream. Everyone goes to America and finds their fortune.
Well, now it's Europe. But
the point is the point was just bringing that up. It's cultural here.
But if we look at, for example, the Middle East, now Libya is doing well. Basically, it's been destroyed because of America. In this, I agree with Steve. They killed Gaddafi, and after that, the country crumbled. But when are the people of Libya themselves responsible for their country? Look at Jordania. Jordania is doing everything to try and remain a stable country, even though ISIS is trying to destabilize the country. Al-Nusra is trying to destabilize their country. All these influences are trying to destabilize their country, but the country itself is doing everything it can to remain stable. They are even taking in loads of refugees from Syria. They need our help to remain stable. But how many refugees are going to Saudi Arabia? How many refugees are in Brunei? How many refugees are in Oman? These are culturally countries that are close to Syria, but they are taking in 0 refugees. The problem is that we are currently facing a refugee stream aimed towards Europe and towards the Western world in general. And the problem is not the fact that these people need help. The problem is how people intend on creating that help, which will only destroy both the country they come from and the country they go to. Do you understand what I say, Steve?
Sure. I mean, I want to wait till everybody kind of finishes getting their point out. That way, I want to get everybody's argument in, and then that way I can respond properly.
It usually is a little bit messy on my streams. I have to admit that.
We're ganging up on you. We're sorry.
No. You're not ganging up, but I do want to hear where everybody's coming from so I can give a proper argument, because I think what's happening is when I'm trying to argue one point, like somebody else thinks I'm arguing their point. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I just want to make sure that like I can address each person's point properly.
Yeah, fair point.
So go ahead. I'll hear. I'm just hearing you guys out.
Fair play, my man. Fair play.
Anyone else want to say something?
Well, I do agree with Steve that we should stop meddling and selling guns to groups. We should, in these countries where we don't have any interest, we need to back off. These people have their own struggles they need to fight for. And that sounds horrible, but these people still need to go to some kind of step of evolution to build something, and that's gonna take a lot of sacrifice and well, that's it.
Yeah. No,
I feel like all I want to add to that is there's nothing wrong with countries asking for help as long as they're willing to put their own effort forward.
If there's willingness, of course.
Yeah, if there's willingness, no problem. But
we have technical stuff and we can advise, but we should stop dumping food and dumping guns and meddle in the politics.
But this is also what Ron Paul said. Basically, America needs to remove itself from all countries that are not America, and only be there if you're invited, and only do what you're asked to do. And if you don't want to do it, don't be in that country. And this, I think, is true for all forms of help. We need to remove our welfare mafia out of the world.
Well, yeah, because we're essentially the parents of a bunch of spoiled children.
Yep.
So
anyway, I think everyone has said something. I am curious to your response, though, Steve, because I know it sounds like as if we're all against you, but that's not true, because I am truly interested in what you say, even if I disagree, because it's not true because I say it. It's not true because you say it, but somewhere in the middle, we all need to reach each other. And it's not that my solution is the best or that your solution is the best. We need to find a way where we can all walk through that door, so to speak.
What he's not telling you is he wants to hear your opinion so he can put you on his naughty list for Christmas.
And
Santa.
I beg to differ.
Some of us like spanking.
Just because it's one day a year.
I have a feeling you're all going to disagree with me when I say this, but each one of you have literally parroted the exact argument I've given in one way or another.
Yeah, we did.
The whole point of what I'm trying to say is each one of these countries not only have an issue with just the weapons, and it's not just weapons coming in, it's not just their own abject poverty, it's not just the actions of countries on the outside. It's all three. And see, when you have a mixture of all three, it's very hard to even see pride in your own country. So what happens is, so I guess a good example would be this. During Rwanda, there was a point where it didn't happen and it ended up getting a lot of people killed. But there was a point where the UN literally said, hey, if you hide here, we will transport you out of Rwanda until whatever this is blows over, and then you can come back. Well, what happened was thousands of people transported to those areas and basically condensed themselves in tiny areas, expecting to get out of the situation they were in.
Yeah.
And then right after that happened, the UN decided we aren't going to be a part of this. So what that did was that it forced dependence. It forced dependence because these people went, okay, well, this is an issue that we don't know if we can handle, but we have people that tell us that they're going to help us out here. So let's go ahead and lean on the people telling us they'll help us out. And then when that help never comes, they've already became dependent on somebody else.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
So wait. Let me finish. So what my argument is from the very beginning is the only thing that I would ask from outside nations to do is to prevent the movement of their weapons into these countries, at least for a short span of time, until these countries can figure out what they are doing themselves. Then when they make that decision to figure out what they are doing, then they can open themselves up to the rest of the world. Just like the United States did for a while, just like every country in Europe did for a while. They were able to have a little bit of time to be able to determine where they want to go. And then they open themselves up to the rest of the outside world.
If I recall correctly, didn't we have a mix of French and oh god, it was French and someone else who were already trading with the US when we beat Britain?
Trade, yes. And I'm not saying to stop trade. I'm saying to stop influence. There's a big difference between stopping trade and stopping influence.
Well, one comes with the other.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Not really, because you don't see much French influence in the United States. The United States, not really.
What is
Not
the
really.
what's the main visualization when people talk about the United States?
Because I guarantee
Statue
you,
of Liberty, but that's not influence. That's not really influence.
That is given to us.
Yes, it was. That's a statue, but that's not influence, because the Statue of Liberty. Wait, please, give me a second. The Statue of Liberty is still, by its own representation, American in what it is. It's not a French statue of a Frenchman outside of New York Harbor. It's something that represents the United States. So even though the French built it, they built it for the United States to give its image of what it wants to present to the world.
They built it for the United States, but they built it for us because we already had influence with the French, and the French had influence with us because of our trade and our history. That's literally my only point.
I mean,
it's not the same. It's not the same.
It absolutely is the same.
No, it's not, because
I'm sorry.
again,
We call her Miss Liberty, right? I'm still correct when I say we call Miss Liberty, right?
There's okay.
If trade and influence are not mutual, how come we have trade embargoes when countries do not do what we wish?
Because again, let me try to see if I can find a better word than influence so I can give. What I mean by influence is there isn't a French legion marching through the United States right now. Do you see what I'm saying? There isn't a French section or sector of the United States. There isn't a French controlled section or sector of the United States.
In New Orleans.
It's not French controlled. It has French representation, but there's not parts of the United States that is French controlled.
Turn the clock back.
That makes any sense.
Turn the clock back 200 and some years. Guess what? The French had a lot of control in those areas.
How long was that clock?
During the time of the end of the Civil War.
Exactly. So 200 and something years ago, there was influence. So that means the United States gave 100 and some odd years, or a little over, I'd say about the Civil War would probably be 150, give or take, years to be able to remove itself from outside. And what I mean by influence is outside control. We are talking about nations that are very, very recently outside of direct control. It's going to take time. And that time is going to extend the longer that radicalized groups are armed. I'm going to stop it there so I can hear everybody else's argument.
So let me see if I've got this right. What you're saying is all these countries are like, I guess the best way I can put this in my own head is it's like we just bought the Louisiana Purchase. If I'm comparing this to America, is they're just recently freed from that particular influence, and it's going to take a while for them to integrate into their own culture. Something to that effect.
It's not as much we just bought the Louisiana Purchase as if I could find something in history that's anywhere near close to it. It is as if this is France and Great Britain in the 1600s. You know, that they are
angry at each other.
Yes, there are a lot of issues that are generated before and after outside influences. They were exacerbated by outside influences, and these issues are going to have to be resolved before any building begins. And the problem is the more outside control, or the more other countries attempt to shift these countries into what their image wants to be, the longer these issues are going to be noted.
I actually agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can see that with what America tried to do. I think it was in Iran, or was it Iraq, where we set up a democracy that got taken out in like 3 months. Yeah.
No, it was Iran.
So I definitely think that has merit.
Oh, it does. And on this part, I agree. And this is also what I said. This is what Ron Paul, for example, said. But not just America needs to go away from the countries where they have nothing to do. I mean, if you're not if you're not asked to come and help, don't offer your help. But at the same time,
and I would argue even a little further than that. Even in some cases, if you're asked to help, don't help, because some of these countries do need to. They need to have that moment to where if this can make any sense to you, by the end of this, places like Africa might not have as many countries as it has. By the end of this, there might be, because those lines that were created by the Berlin Conference, all those lines are arbitrary. They mean absolutely nothing. They literally are ridiculous lines that were drawn just by people who do not understand the landscape, do not understand the tribes that live there. They did not care. They just said this part is this part and this part is ours.
Are you saying that in another 100 years we could have the United States of Africa?
Yeah. I mean, you might disagree with me, but yeah, it takes about anywhere between 100 and 150 years, and it takes a lot of questionable events, a lot of over-the-top events to happen, but it takes about that long for true stabilization to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but I don't think we will see a one Africa, because Africa is troubled with several cultures that are completely incompatible with any other culture but themselves. So they will continue.
I'm willing to bet we'd see the United States of America be like actual all of North America before we'd see United Africa.
Well,
and
I mean,
I'll respond with this, this is a very good way of looking at it. If you look at Europe before World War II, there was no chance of there being cooperation in any of those countries.
And
before something so astonishing happened that 60 million people were buried and dead, these countries did not get along at all.
I think World War I is the one you meant.
But even before World War I, they did get along. World War One is basically politics, not people. The people had no problem. World War One is basically.
Well, it doesn't make sense. You can't separate the politics from the people.
World War One is a middle finger to everyone.
World War One basically happened because of Bolshevism, because of socialism. Socialism killed.
What? Whoa! What?
1 second. Can I just say one last thing, and then I'm going to step away. You can separate the people from the politics, and actually stating that people in the politics can't be separated is what has gotten all of the countries into this problem in the first place. Yeah. You should be able to always separate a person from the politics.
Yeah. When I say you can't separate people from their politics, I'm not saying as in should. I'm saying as in what actually happens. We should be separated from our politics. And again, a good example, Germany, 1933, only 33% of Germans even agreed with any of Hitler's actions. But when Hitler decided to go ahead and invade Poland, all of Germany was in.
No, not all of Germany was in. They had to follow. But the problem is, and I'm going to go back to the point I made, because the First World War happened because of what we now call Antifa, because of what we now call the communists. At the time, they were called the Bolsheviks. They started World War One. And how did they start?
How did they start World War One?
Well, wait. Okay, well, let's continue that then.
Let me finish.
Did they start the Franco-Prussian War? Did they start the Finland-Russian War? Did they start many of these wars, many of these small wars that happened before World War II kicked off? Were these all Bolsheviks?
Yeah, yes.
No.
Yes, they were.
Wow.
Franco was a direct result because, and this is not, that was after the First World War, is a direct result as a combative move against the Bolsheviks. If we look at the First World War started because a Prussian prince got killed by
in Serbia.
Serbia, yeah.
But the Serbian
Franz Archduke Ferdinand got shot outside of a sandwich shop because his motorcade decided to take a crap in front of one of the assassins who was having a sandwich. Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
And again,
no, let me finish, please. Let me finish. Because the dude that did it was an anarchist and a Bolshevik. Yeah. What's his name? I mean, he was Austro-Hungarian. They asked the Prussians for help against Serbia. The Prussians came to the aid, and that's when France and Great Britain jumped on the Prussians because the Prussian Empire was becoming too big anyway. And that's how the First World War got started. It wasn't because they were against the Prussians. No, it was because they felt that they needed to help Serbia, even though Serbia had people within its border that started the First World War. The Second World War was a direct result of the First World War. Antifa was started in 1933 as well, actually. 38, I think it was 33. And they called themselves Antifa. Before that, they were the Bolshevik somethings, and there were two communistic groups that decided to work together after they had been kicked out of Italy at the start of fascism. Fascism was a direct result of what we now call Antifa. The Nazis were a direct result of what we now call Antifa. Franco was a direct result of what we now call Antifa.
So I guess my response to that is this, and I think I know where you're going to because I'm going to ask the same question. So where did this, what we call Antifa, start? And before that, well, okay, so if it started at the Bolsheviks, that's the mid 1800s.
No, would you say? A bit later, I would say
1903.
And 1903 they became
that's when they became prominent. But I mean, when they actually started,
1880, 70.
Okay, so any war before that, what would you say would be the reason?
Depends. Could have been because.
So, and that's the answer I was looking for. Depends, because that depends actually explains that before World War II, before something so mad, and again, we are only 70 years removed from World War II, so there's no guarantee that we won't be here again. Before World War II, World War I, there were thousands of proxy wars of all different reasons and all different excuses in Europe. Europe was literally a bloodbath for like 3 or 4 centuries before World War I, because there were so many different nations trying to establish their own power while also trying to be ethnostates. If that makes any sense.
Actually, they weren't trying to be ethnostates, but I understand what you mean. They automatically more or less seem to be ethnostates because every group basically, it was more like a cultural state than an ethnostate, to be honest. Because if we look at the Dutch are Germanic. If we look at the Danish are Germanic. If we look at the Germans, obviously Germanic. But if we look at the French, they are Germanic. So if it were ethnostates, then these guys would have worked together. But they didn't, because they weren't culturally one country.
It's interesting that you point out that the French were Germanic, because when I look at the French, all I see is a bunch of surrender monkeys waving white flags.
Thank you. But they are Germanic.
I'm just saying. No German surrenders. I'm just saying.
Why is France called France? Because of the Franks. The Franks started what we now call France in, let's say, 400, 500. The first France Empire was called the Merovingian Empire. They were the Merovech was the king of France back then, who was a Frank. He was called Merovech because he came from the Merwede, which is, funny enough, a river in the Netherlands. So they moved from the Netherlands to there, and they started a whole kingdom. If we look at the first Holy Roman Empire, so that's not Rome, but the Holy Roman Empire, which is after the fall of Rome, was a Germanic country. If we look at the Teutonic, I'm terrible with English. Basically, there was a huge country, and it was split up into 3. Sorry?
You mean the Habsburgs, right?
No. Well before that.
Oh, okay.
Merovech became the king of France, and after him, I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry, but there was another French king and another one. And in the Germanic tribes, it was normal that if the king dies, the land would be divided to all their sons. And at a certain point in time, the French king, or the Germanic French king, was so big that it held France, Austria, Switzerland, large pieces of what we now call Romania, Yugoslavia, etc., and of course Germany. And when he died, his country was split in 3 lands: France, the Holy Roman Empire, and I always forget the third name.
Well, and before we go off into that, but my point was, again, and might not be ethnostates, but my point was, again,
that's the point I was trying to make. Sorry, because that's what I came to.
Yeah. And I apologize for saying that. I apologize for saying ethnostates, but
I don't care. I'm not in favor or against ethnostates, because to me it's bullshit. I prefer to talk about social cohesive states. I'd rather have a state with white people and black people sharing a culture than a state with white people, all of different cultures. Because let's put it fairly, if we have a white state like America, and half of America is white and capitalist, and the other half is white and Antifa, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. You might have an ethno-state, but it's still going to fail.
And you've just, as funny as it sounds, in that small sentence, you've just proven my argument. And my argument is hear me out. My argument is literally until there is a way that these shared countries can figure out what they are going to be, there's always. I'm sorry.
Elicia, your grandkids are really noisy.
No, it's fine. Until a lot of these countries, because again, like I said, the lines separating many of these countries are arbitrary. Yeah. And what I'm saying is Africa. and also in the Middle East, to be honest. Until there is a point where they actually get to start determining what their countries are, what their countries reach out to. And unfortunately, and I know this sounds very, very pessimistic or evil, but some cultures are going to have to die. Other cultures are going to have to rise.
Look,
and I agree with you on that. And this is why I'm going to say the next thing. And this is where you and I probably will not agree. Europe needs to close its borders, because taking in the refugees will not only destroy those countries, but they will destroy the European.
Well, it needs to be two-pronged. That's why I'm saying Europe can't just close its borders, but still act in other nations. Europe's going to have to close its borders and also allow these other nations to grow and develop in their own ways. It's going to have both are going to happen at the same time.
But here lies the problem, because everyone agrees that when in Africa or in the Middle East something terrible happens, the Western societies need to come and help. But at the same time, the Western societies need to keep their doors open for the refugees. And this is the double standard, because somehow, if there's a problem, whites need to solve it. Well, not whites, the Western societies, because in all fairness, not all Western countries are white.
And as funny as it sounds, and this you might disagree with this, but as funny as it sounds, the people making that argument are Western whites.
Yes, terrible.
Because a lot of the people in their home nations are saying, hey, leave us alone, because the more you interfere in our activities and then leave, the worse you're creating.
Even if you don't leave, we've been having 60 or 70 years of social health and welfare state ideas pushed on Africa and the Middle East. We've got Oxfam Novik trying to help in all these countries. And the only thing that happens is that the problem has gotten worse. So we need to stop trying to help, because we're not.
I think, again, I would challenge you on the health thing, but it's not that much of an argument on the social health and everything else. I think it's more, as long as that country provides its own social health, then it would work in their own country. But as long as, again, as long as this country is relying on another country for not trade, but social health, it's going to be like this. Like, if trade is fine, social health is a problem. Like, coming in as another nation and, hey, we're going to feed you, that creates not only dependence, but that creates battles. And I'm sorry, I'll stop right now.
No, just let me cut in here. I wanted to add on to what you said, because Elicia asked. When you said some cultures have to die, I think you just meant that cultures will die out naturally, or they're going to die. Not all cultures are going to survive. It's not a matter of we're choosing cultures that need to go. It's a matter of cultures are just not going to continue.
We're not going to choose them, but we need to defend. The cultures that can defend themselves need to defend themselves.
Absolutely, yes.
And cultures that cannot will die off.
Well, no. What I mean by certain cultures are going to have to die is not just African cultures. I'm saying cultures that created hierarchies in African nations. I'm saying, like, the reason why the Hutus and the Tutsis ended up having such a battle was because the culture created a society where the Hutus were considered second-class citizens, the Tutsis were considered third-class. So when the Dutch, I'm sorry, I think it's the Dutch or the Belgian, one of them, when they left, all the Tutsis saw was the second class oppressing them, and they reacted violently. And unfortunately, that hierarchical system is going to have to destroy itself on top of other systems. Artificial hierarchical systems will always have to be destroyed. And that's what I mean. I'm not saying...
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but the problem is this. Most people in the world at this point in time pretend that this is because of white cultures, because of Western culture. And this is the main issue. And the Western culture needs to defend themselves from the push of white guilt. because there is nothing white to be guilty about. There are things that we need to improve upon. But we cannot improve upon these things if we destroy ourselves. And this is not about black and white. This is about culture. Because if we look at South Africa, and this is a discussion I had with someone, and obviously they didn't agree. But when the Dutch came to Cape de Goede Hoop, Cape Town, I think it's called in English, they were there, and there were nomads called the Khoi. And the Dutch and the Khoi had a few bouts of war, but the Dutch didn't really try to destroy them. What really destroyed the Khoi was the influence of the Bantu. Bantu is a Zulu tribe, by the way. But no one is talking about that. But everyone is talking about what the Dutch did. We need to be more honest about the histories. I'm going to finish my sentence. We need to be more honest about what actually happens. We need to stop saying, yeah, but they know better, therefore it's their fault. Because we're talking about history. No one knew better. They were all idiots.
I propose that we change the name of the stream to Modwain versus Steve with 7 moderators.
I'm sorry. Let me stop again. You guys go ahead.
No. I just wanted to. I just thought that'd be funny to say. You're fine, dude. Go ahead.
I invited you. I love the fact that we are having this discussion, whether we agree or not. I've often said I don't want everyone to agree here. Even if we disagree, we can have good talks, and I would love it if you came back.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to see you too. You seem like a really intelligent dude. I'd love to pick your brain sometime.
Yeah, you make points.
I'm actually just happy I'm on a stream where people are disagreeing with me, but I'm not being called every possible
hold on, wait, I got this.
Shit.
Oh, hold on, wait. Well, let me pull it up. Longest insult in the world.
Now that I said that.
Yeah, man, you opened the doors.
Hold on, I got this. You dirty, stuck-up, sadistic, shit-eating, cock-sucking, butt-fucking, penis-smelling, crotch-grabbing, ball-licking, semen-drinking, dog-raping, Nazi-loving, child-touching, cow-humping, perverted, spineless, heartless, mindless, dickless, testicle
Why
choking.
Are you talking about his sexual preferences? That's just not cool.
Jerk-offing, horse-face, sheep-fondling, toilet-kissing, self-centered, feces-puking, dildo-shoving, snot-spitting, crap-gathering, big nose, monkey-slapping, bastard-screwing, bean-shitting, fart-knocking, sack-busting, splooge-tasting, bear-blowing, head-swallowing, bitch-snatching, hand-jobbing, donkey-caressing, mucus-spewing.
Yeah, I'm going to sign here now. I'm so happy
human beings. Human beings, not human doings.
Nobody, if you want.
As funny as it sounds, that is still a lot tamer than I've heard from.
Yeah. In all fairness,
you are what you is.
Yeah. In all fairness, in this stream, I don't care what words you use. I mean, you might not know this, but Rin Michaelis used to be a steady in this stream. I haven't seen her for a few weeks. I've invited it, obviously. Maybe she will be here later. Another issue, because I understand what you say. People swear, etc., etc. I personally think if you get insulted, you need to deal with that. It's not that other people are not allowed to. No. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that this is what you do. You seem to be a person who actually talks. Even if we disagree, it doesn't become a swearing match.
Yeah.
We are allowed to disagree.
I actually don't think we've had a swearing match on these streams as long as I've been coming on here.
No, because I don't want that.
Well, not even that. It's just we seem to have a general error.
But that's because the people that are here, whether we agree with each other or not, we are respectful.
Yeah.
We might think you're an idiot. Nobody.
Hey,
we will
can it, Santa? Can it, Santa? I won't paint your sleigh this week.
No, but enough of that. In all fairness, though, I am going to call it quits. It's 1:30, so it's middle of the night here.
Yeah, it's 7:30, and I got to eat and spend time with my wife before she kills me.
Hey, but in all fairness, Steve, thank you, because you came with how do you call it?
Open mind.
No, yeah. Well, he came with an open mind. That's not the thing. I responded to him on a tweet, and he basically said, I said I want to talk about this, and he was open about this, and I respect that.
Oh yeah, us liberals aren't always or us leftists aren't always scared to talk. There's some of us
But
out
you know
here.
why I say this. You know why I say this.
I know.
See, and the thing is, and all of us have mentioned this in the past. 10 years, 15 years ago, I was left. I haven't changed my point of view, but somehow I'm not left anymore.
The world changed around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As it always does.
A lot of things have happened in the last 15 years that has baffled everyone.
Yeah. Anyway, normally this is the time when I say, guys, if you want to plug yourself, go ahead. Dick, I'm going to start with you. Have you finally made your video, mate?
Methinks. Am I on? Am I on? Am I here?
Yes, you are.
Yes. It's taking a lot of work, and I can only spend so many minutes a day. But I really want to make this one perfect. So
okay, well, we're still looking forward to it.
Oh, it will come. It will come, and that's why
I expect a link.
Oh
we
yes,
all do. We all do.
That's why I showed the cam. So because it will not be anonymous.
Okay, you're going to show your face. I am very brave of you, mate. It really is.
+2 respect.
Definitely. Elicia, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, if you guys are bored, not the last video, but the last 2 videos on pedophilia, we got some real pedophiles that are skulking around, and you'll have an opportunity to speak with these disgusting people. And so it's a lot of fun. So go check those videos out.
I can only applaud Elicia, guys. Check her work out. It's really, really insightful. I'm not even going to say interesting because that doesn't cover it. It's really insightful.
It's both.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's interestingly insightful.
It's insightful. Insightful beats interestingly, hands down.
They're both.
Fuck you.
No, fuck you.
Axel, Real Raven, my friend, my musical genius.
Hey, sorry for cutting you guys off, but I gotta hang up. I just got an evil eye. I apologize.
Hey, do you have a YouTube channel or something like that you want to plug?
Not at the moment. I did have one, but I had to delete it because YouTube is horrible. But I will be building one soon. I'll send you the link as soon as I have it built.
Cool. I have you in Twitter. I will send you an invite in the future.
Nice meeting you, Steve.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you guys too.
Nice to meet you, Steve.
You too.
You have a wonderful night.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Back to
cool,
you,
dude.
Real Raven. Yeah, he is. He really is. I love talking to him, even though I don't 100% agree, obviously, because that's my thing. Anyway, Real Raven.
Yeah, check my latest song, Thumbs Up YouTube Bloodsports. Since I post very seldom, you won't lose any time if you subscribe to me. You'll find a video every month.
It's a really good song, though. It really is. Maybe we should play it.
I work on my shit for a month as well, so it's good. It's
quality,
not quantity, baby.
You know what you should do is you should take the song you two are working on, and Modwain, you should use it for your intros.
I have thought about that. I'm not quite sure if I will do that.
Wait till it's finished first.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously.
And he's going to finish it tonight because tomorrow it needs to be ready.
Hey, Raven, I want a link to that. Is it going to be on your channel?
I'm not finishing it tonight because I can't play the guitar at 2 a.m. in the morning.
I know, mate. I know.
I don't have a studio. That's the problem. It's a walkthrough room. So if I had a separate studio, I'd be much more prolific.
Anyway, nobody, you have anything to say?
I finally got another video out on the Bully Hunters thing. If anyone's watching that, want to check that out.
Yeah, you should. I haven't seen it yet, though.
Aside from that, that's all I really got to say.
Well, in that case, I'm going to call it quick quits as well. As I said, it's 2:30, so, and I got the hiccups now, tired and all that jazz. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'm sorry, people in the chat, Black Knight, Marcel, Evil, you did type a lot, and I did pick up on a few things, and I tried to point them in. Usually I do so by saying, okay, he points out that. I didn't do that today. I'm sorry. Dick did bring one up. Yeah, next time I'm going to try to pay more attention to the chat as well. But I would love to thank you all. No, I would love you all to come next time, and I thank you all for coming. And I'd like to thank my guests, Dick, Elicia, Axel, The Ramblings, Futternutteh, and Steve. And I hope to see you all next time. This is where we say bye-bye.